My guest today is a former volleyball coach. She was the head coach at Arizona State for 14 years and was a two-time Pac-10 Coach of the Year, Patti Snyder-Park. Patti, it is such an honor to
Oh,
be talking with you today.
well, thank you. I feel like I'm grandmother of the valley right now. It seems like it's been a while, since I've been in the gym, but thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity to talk about volleyball again.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And as you know, of course, ASU volleyball is currently having another great season with head coach JJ Van Niel. From
Yeah.
your perspective, what do you see out of this team that makes it so successful?
Well, I'll tell you what, JJ Veniel is doing a remarkable job. He has put in a system that is obviously the players are thriving in the system. It's all analytical based or analytics, which is a big thing in volleyball now, which wasn't that much of a thing when I was coaching. But the team, he's got the right players that are playing their positions tremendously well. They're highly efficient. They're super efficient at basic skills, and they've got the statistics for the matchups, and they just execute at a high level. So he's got some really great athletes, but a system that they bought into and are executing starting last year, and they haven't let up the foot off the pedal. They're fun to watch, really fun to watch.
Yeah, yes, you're dead on about that. Yeah, such a fun team to watch with so many great players, and whenever I'm at a game, I just love seeing just all the players because you can tell that they're just having so much fun and they
Yeah,
enjoy playing volleyball at ASU. It's just really great to see.
yeah, absolutely. Winning takes care of that energy. But because they're so efficient, they're winning so many rallies. They just stay in the moment. They're all about business on the court. They don't get too high, too low. They're very level, but you there's is that joy there. They're playing with that confidence and a thrill of the game, and then move on to the next point. I love it. They can get ace, serve it out, hitting air, it doesn't matter. Next point. And I love that. I think they're really stable emotionally.
Now let's get into a bit of your background now. You're a native of Palo Alto, California. What I gotta ask, what was life like growing up there?
It was kind of ideal, a very ideal community. It was before Palo Alto blew up into this multi-million-dollar enclave south of, before the tech industry took over. My parents bought a house for 15,000 back in the late 50s. And it was a community that had after school recreation programs, tree lined streets, parks everywhere. It was just families grew up there. It was a very much, like small town USA, picket fence type ideal. And I loved growing up there. It was in the Bay Area, and I grew up in the 60s, so it was kind of turbulent times. We had civil rights going on, women's rights going on. Um, it just kind of an exciting time to grow up right there at the base of Stanford campus and everything that was coming through the campus at the time. But I loved growing up in Palo Alto, and now I have to win the lottery to be able to afford to move back there.
Yeah. How did you first get interested in the sport of volleyball?
Through high school, through my softball days. Um, the coach who was my softball coach in high school was also a club volleyball coach, Rich Feller, who ended up being the head coach. He coached at Pacific, and then he was the head coach at Cal at UC Berkeley for, gosh, I don't know how many years, 20 years or so. Went to national championships. I think Cal won it one year with him. But he was the one that got me into club volleyball, and then parlayed that into college, going to college, and ended up playing. I went for softball up in Oregon, but then I ended up playing 4 years of volleyball. And then after 4 years of volleyball, I was able to then parlay that opportunity into that professional, playing professionally for those 1 year, 2 years coaching, and then also then got hired by my collegiate coach to come down and coach at Cal. So I was an assistant coach, ended up being an associate head coach at Cal for 5 years in the Pac-10 at the time, and then got the call from ASU to come down and interview for the ASU job. And this is actually, it happened while I was still in New York with the New York Liberties of the Pro League. So it kind of you look back and it just, everything happened so fast. And then here I am,
Oh.
but yeah, that's how I got into it. Little 5'2" Patti Snyder coach at Pac-10 institution. So I am the ninth of 12 children. I grew up in a sport family, 6 brothers, 5 sisters. Everybody competed in something, multiple athlete, multiple sport athletes. And so it was just kind of natural to be in sports and kind of, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician and went into the science field in college, but coaching was my opportunity to make some money as soon as I graduated. So that's where I continued on.
What are your fondest memories from playing volleyball at Portland State?
Uh, well, I had a tremendous coach. She was a tremendous tactician. She was super smart about training. We were in incredibly great shape. We had very intense practices, but they were also fun practices. Got a lot of touches on the ball, and I think that's kind of how I leveraged. We were so good at the basic skills. We executed at a very high level of the basics. So I loved our practices. I was still growing in volleyball. I was a multiple sport athlete, funneled into one sport in college, and I loved getting out of the classroom and the studies in the rain of Portland, and getting into the gym and just training. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I loved the sport. I couldn't get enough of the sport. So it was really kind of a fever dream to be able to go to practices, and they were pretty intense, but we always saw results. So we were pretty successful too, kind of a Northwest dynasty. We beat the Oregons and the Washingtons and even the Cal Stanfords back in the day. And this was when Title IX was just getting going and getting scholarships offered. And, Southern Cal and Northern Cal hadn't really, been dominating. So it was easy for these little pocket schools maybe that were putting money. Portland State was putting money into women's sports, and just happened to be lucky to be around at the right time, actually.
Marlene Piper was the head coach at Portland State during your playing days.
Yeah.
What would you say were the biggest things that you learned from her, and what impact did she have on you moving forward as you then would go on to get into coaching?
She was so disciplined. She was a very disciplined person, disciplined coach. Our practices were so well organized. The process of how we moved through practices, how we trained, um, physically trained to get stronger and jump higher and move quicker, but also just the skills involved. Her discipline, but she never cursed. She never got mad. She was just so disciplined and so on task that we had such a high respect for her. Just really respected the person she was off the court, on the court. She was kind, treated everybody very well. And to this day, they talk about your 5 wealth determiners in your life. And she's one of those, highly educated. She got her PhD and graduated, valedictorian at BYU, with her doctorate, just super intelligent, but so soft spoken. And that's, I think, what I admired the most about her. And I'm kind of more of a whippersnapper, high energy person. And I think she put some calm into me. And certainly when I started coaching, I tried to do things the way she did them, and have the perspective, even though I couldn't always be calm or calm in timeouts. It's the one thing I just really admire and respect, and I think tried to take with me, was her discipline and her calm approach. I never got the calm approach.
As you mentioned, you also played professionally for the New York Liberties in Major League Volleyball. And now, for anyone watching this is different from the WNBA team, the Liberty. This is the Liberties, just to make that clear. Um,
Correct.
but
Correct.
what do you recall from that experience?
Well, it was struggling at best financially. So we stayed in a hotel at the White Plains Hotel, just off, just north of Manhattan. We practiced at the Westchester County Center. We didn't really have, I think we had two cars for everybody. So we just piled in the car and go to practice. A few times we would go down to the downtown athletic club in Manhattan and train down there. But it was exciting at the same time because we got to obviously fly. We were flying to, Chicago or San Jose had a team, Minnesota. We were flying into those cities and staying, at decent hotels. But it wasn't really what the professional leagues have now. I mean, I think we had two uniforms. Um, we didn't have a huge budget. We didn't have a massive per diem, and it wasn't a big paycheck either. We were just doing it to keep our profession, our sports lives going. Um, but I have to say that the biggest thing was the excitement of the level of competition. I think the best of America. This was before people were going overseas and playing in Turkey or Japan or Italy or wherever they're going now to make some big bank. But the ability to play at another next highest level against top collegiate players that had since graduated, that was pretty exciting. The level was pretty high.
Before coming to Tempe, like you mentioned earlier, you were an assistant coach at Cal. When you were at Cal, what things during that experience helped you become better prepared to then become the head coach at Arizona State?
I think because I was coaching in the Pac-10, I had great. Marlene Piper was actually the head coach, and then hired me to be her assistant. Knew I was from the Bay Area, and I wanted to come back to California. But so it was great to be in the Pac-10 amongst the great coaches who were in the conference at the time. Andy Banikowski down at UCLA had a dynasty, national championships. So being in the conference and competing in the Pac-10, which at the time was from top to bottom, we had 10 teams and probably 8 were ranked in the top 20. So I really felt our competition, our practices and competition were right in line with what ASU would need. The ability to recruit to the conference was easy because I was having to do that at a very high level. In fact, to get athletes to consider Cal, or the same athletes that are considering Stanford, you had to recruit at a very high level and a very high athlete. And so coming to ASU, I already had that bag of tricks in my pocket of, because it really started to become all about recruiting, probably less about training, but getting those impact athletes right away. So it was an easy transition for me. I felt like my mentorship, playing for Marlene Piper and coaching with her, and then doing a lot of clinics around the country. I went to a lot of, Ari Selinger was our national team head coach for our women's Olympic team. I probably went to every clinic he ever offered, went around the country. So I tried to, keep filling my toolbox with different perspectives, different training styles. And I think it was easy for me. I didn't feel like I was a fish out of water. I was certainly green when I got to ASU because there's so much more you have to do with budgeting and meetings and all of that. But I felt that it was an easier transition because I was for 5 years at Cal
Hmm.
under a coach.
Now, your first season in Tempe was in 1989. Just, what was it like getting adjusted to living in the desert that first year?
Well, especially coming from Berkeley, it, it was night and day. Um, I wasn't sure I was a fan of the desert, frankly. Um, I'd only been to Arizona for competition, Pac-10 competitions when we came down with Cal. And so I was kind of in a culture shock a little bit. There was not a whole lot of diversity in Arizona. Maybe two restaurants in the state that I would consider going to after coming from just beautifully diverse ethnic foods, people, shops, the Bay Area. But then it grew on me. The weather was amazing. 8 months out of the year, the weather is perfect. I found that the people, I found my people. I love being on a collegiate campus, so that's no different. Anytime you're on a higher education on campus, you're around interesting intellectual people. You're finding new things, and I travel the state. I'm a very curious person. I like to experience different places. And I think that's, something to this day fulfills me, to travel the country, the world. So I grew to really love Arizona, and it didn't take long. Maybe by the second year I was here, I was like, I'm kind of a Phoenician. I kind of like this Arizona thing. So, and then Arizona it really just took off. People were moving in from all over the place, and it was so affordable, and the weather was so great. Now we're so beautifully diverse, in the valley now too. So, it's all caught up and full circle.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This place, it's definitely grown a lot. In that period of time, it's seen a lot of growth since then.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And the campus, ASU campus, academically, what President Crow has done to bring national, uh, to raise the level of the academic standing at ASU with all the research that's going on, all the building. Like I go down, I'm on campus. Obviously, I try to get as many volleyball matches, and I go to football. I go to as many sports as I can. I'm definitely a Sun Devil. Um, but it's a crazy how much it's grown. I mean, every year there's another building, and over by the stadium and what is it? There's financial now. Like there's a whole nother like city that's being built within where it used to be. I think the fraternity row over there. And, that's completely gone, and now it's just crazy. But that's growth and that's progress, and I'm all for that. So.
Yes, yes, for sure. What do you remember most from your first season coaching at ASU?
It was that first year was interesting. I loved the girls on the team for who they were as humans. I met some really great gals. It was not my team. I didn't have time to recruit anybody because I was hired late in the spring. The previous coach joined to be an assistant with the national team program. It was Debbie Brown at the time. And so whatever team was there, is what I inherited, and didn't have a chance. So I would kind of struggle to should I keep things the same for the girls so they don't have a whole lot of adjustment, or should I try to make it mine? Because I know there was different way we trained. Processes were different. Really struggled to find my balance that first year with the athletes and my systems and how I trained and my expectations. Um, but I think I ended up with lifelong friendships with some of those gals on that team to this day. They're some of the most salt of the earth people. So I think I grew with them more emotionally than I did in the gym. Um, I was growing. I was green. I grew up super fast being the head coach, and they had to come along with that. So I'd have to say it was probably some of my greatest growth was that first year. And I look back and I'm glad I did grow. I'm glad I didn't just, I tried to make things easier for them and kind of go into their system. It made it harder for me, but perhaps maybe easier for them. I don't know if I would do it differently. And I'm glad I grew as much as I did that first year. I'd probably say the first 5 years of coaching was huge growth every year. You find out about yourself, and you tweak things every year. I had different assistants that I was hiring in, and it's change is inevitable and growth is it's exciting. So yeah, I'd say that first year growth for me, personal growth.
Now, not too long after that first season, you led ASU to four straight NCAA tournament appearances from 92 to 95. What would you say were the main factors in the success for those teams?
Recruiting, getting in some phenomenal athletes, from, all around the country. Certainly I spent a lot of time in Southern Cal while I was at Berkeley recruiting, and I just kept that up. I had relationships with the high school coaches, the club coaches there. So I got some phenomenal athletes to come over to ASU and get them out of California. Um, Terry Cox-Spann, Christine Garner. I was able to, snatch those girls, and they ended up being top, Pac-10 players. So it was recruiting, clearly, getting in people who matched my system. I couldn't go after the jumping 6-footer 4.0s because I kept losing them to Stanford, Cal, and even UCLA at the time. USC was, really starting to make their move to become a top 20 program as well. But I was able to get athletes that I knew would fit my system. I was a defensive-minded coach. I wanted the ball never to hit the ground. Because we weren't as big, we were going to be better with ball control and defense, kind of the way ASU is right now. They just stay in the rally, and other teams make more errors than ASU, and that's kind of how we had to win. We didn't win it with size at the net. We went with athleticism and ball control and relentless defense. We just no ball hit the ground. So I was able to find those kinds of athletes that were phenomenal, maybe smaller, but phenomenal athletes and super competitive. And it was them executing.
What was the process like for you as a coach, implementing your system and and having that system grow and get better each season?
It's funny because there was a lot of athletes that were more raw that I took in, and I had to do a lot of basic training. I just wanted us to be so good at the basic fundamentals, our serve and pass and defensive game, just and hitting smart. We maybe are going to bang the ball straight down, but we're going to be smart about what we're hitting, high off the hands, finding the open holes in defenses. So I needed to find those athletes to fit that system. And so developing my system was just finding the right athletes. And does that answer your question? I kind of almost forgot
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
question was. Yeah. And so I think, I think the athletes adapt to the system that's there. So you kind of find what's going to fit your system and the recruits that you can get, and you kind of keep molding that. And that's kind of how I worked, throughout. I said I kind of found what worked for me. I guess I was going to say that I got some great athletes who are also great volleyball players. And I think maybe sometimes the pace for them wasn't always the pace they wanted, because it was, you're kind of like teaching to the lowest level of the class. And I don't want to say it like that, but I spent a lot more time first half of our practices just doing so much basic technical work, basic skills and high repetition on the same skills over and over again, so that we would never break down in a match with basic fundamentals. We were going to be highly competitive because we could execute the basics. That was probably maybe more boring for some of these, people that I just want to do drills, that are game-like. And I think that's how I kind of evolved. I think we started getting athletes that we didn't have to spend as much time with the basics. They were coming in with better fundamentals, and then we could then evolve into more coaching, statistics, high-level drills that were more game-like and situational. I think that was the evolution of my 14 years.
And going off that, what would you say was your primary coaching philosophy?
Defense wins rallies. I had to because I didn't have a big team. I had some bigger girls, but they weren't the pace that I needed on the court for my system. So I was a defensive-minded coach, and it was floor defense, was going to win it. And that first touch was, so whether you're passing or playing floor D, which is the backcourt, that we had to win with that. So I was definitely a defensive-minded coach, and we led, I think, the Pac-10 and digs per set almost every single year I was there, because it was important. And the 6-footers learned how to get down and dive and roll and pursue balls. They weren't immune to having to play defense as well. Like, if you're going to be out in 6 rotations on the court, you're going to learn how to touch a ball, and every single way the ball needs to be touched to win a rally. So That was definitely my philosophy and how I coach practices.
Mm. The 2002 season was your last at ASU. You left to spend more time with your family. What was the process like of making that decision?
It was tough. It was a tough decision because I still loved coaching. I to this day I love volleyball. I love being a spectator. But I was missing. I felt I was a 50% coach and a 50% parent, and that's not good enough for either. So my decision was after the birth of my third child. I was I was really feeling I was missing out a lot of their growth and development. Some of the things that they're doing at school, I was missing some activities. But then when I was home, I felt like I wasn't always there after practice. If my girls needed me, the athletes on the team, I felt like, I just felt like I couldn't give enough to either. And so the decision to step away, knowing that there is a line of people a heck of a lot better than me that can coach volleyball, that decision was easy. Like the ASU was going to be able to get good coaches to replace me, but nobody's going to replace me as a mom with my children. And I didn't want anybody, I didn't want nannies or babysitters raising my kids. I was very fortunate that my mother was able to come down the first few years during my season, and then she ended up staying and living with us year round and being a kind of a grandmother nanny at home. I was very fortunate to have that, but I wanted to raise my children. So in that sense, it was very easy. Anybody can coach ASU, or they'll be able to get a great coach because it's a great program and a great conference. Um, and I wanted to be a present mom. So that decision was easy, but it was hard to make the break from ASU because I still loved coaching. I still loved being in the gym and seeing the growth of players. Um, but since I've left, I've been able to stay in touch with so many of the alumni. I always let whatever coach came through, I'd always let them. It's their program. I'd stay away unless they invited me into a practice or something. I would be, available or whatever. And I'd always attend a few practices, but I felt it was important to stay away and let them have their program, grow their program. But I promised myself and our alum that I would stay in touch, and we'd always have good alumni connections. And every year I host a tailgate for football/volleyball. I try to stay in touch with them and have some sort of event every year to keep them networked, keep them involved, and bring them back home. So that's how I've stayed involved. So
Hey, that's awesome. That is awesome.
yeah.
At the last home match you coached in Tempe, this was a 3-1 win against Oregon. A post-match ceremony was held in your honor. What did that mean to you to be recognized with that ceremony?
You know, it was it kind of makes me emotional now because I didn't want to leave coaching. I don't even know why I'm getting emotional. I think I really didn't want to leave coaching, but I knew I needed to. I needed for my own sanity. I needed to. So, it's nice to be recognized. You're so thick in the throes of, for you, even for going through college, all of a sudden, you're just going to classes and signing up for the next semester and going to class and signing, and all of a sudden it's over. It's like I graduated. Where did the time go? And here you are. And it was kind of like that. It was like, I can't believe I had been at ASU for 14 years. I felt like I'd been there for 5. Um, but it's nice to have the people that you love uh, kind of surround you with that kind of love, and it just makes you very grateful and thankful to be able to have that kind of family. My ASU family and friends are my family. Um, and I think that's what makes me emotional because I really grew up at ASU. I grew up, I became an adult at ASU. Found my husband there. He was working there. My kids all graduated from there. They all have their undergraduate degrees from ASU. So we're definitely Sun Devil family. So it's never left me. Even though I left campus, I've always been a diehard Sun Devil.
Then the last match overall you coached for ASU, it was in the NCAA tournament against Nebraska. After that match was done and just, in the days following that, what sort of emotions were you feeling?
It's funny. What a great place to go out, first of all. Nebraska, I don't know how long it's been since I've been on 2000, 22 years, whatever. Um, their fans are phenomenal. And so to have that place packed and they appreciate both teams that are playing on the court. My husband went to Nebraska, so my family was there. So that was it was a really special match to go out on because it was, even though we lost to Nebraska and they ended up going to the Final Four that year, I think they were ranked, they were top 4 ranked team. That was special. Um, but then it took me a couple months to realize that I didn't have to wake up and be somewhere, do something. You always wake up like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something. And so it took me a while I thought I was going to maybe take 6 months off, and I just found out that I'm not very good sitting around doing nothing. So I got my license, my real estate license within about, I don't know, 2 months or so, because I just felt like I needed to be doing something, but at least I could control my hours, still be home, get the kids to school, pick them up, be home, that kind of thing. But it took me a while to just slow down, stop the whole, the cycle of, 80-hour weeks and, late nights and weekends gone. And that took a while. But I stayed involved with my athletes. I stayed involved with the alum relations, even that spring, and then into the next fall. I tried to stay in touch, and so I've been in touch. So it wasn't like a sever and never see anybody again. I still have my contacts and friendships. So,
I think it's great that even to this day, you're still maintaining those connections. I think that's so awesome.
yeah, it's meaningful. It it's more meaningful to see them now, and they're raising their families. They're off doing great things with whatever work they're doing. I've got lawyers and nurses, uh, doctors, architects, moms, teachers, you name it. They're out there doing things and they're making great contributions, um, and have these amazing families now. And I love the full circle atmosphere. And I love seeing everybody when we come back together. Last fall, we had the 50th anniversary of Arizona State Volleyball. So it was all eras that came together. And it's a pretty proud moment. And I'm really grateful to have that. I really am. I'll never not be in touch with my girls.
And just overall, what does it mean to you knowing that you made a mark and that you left a legacy in Tempe?
Oh gosh. Well, I definitely left a mark. I had an era there. As far as a legacy, I don't know. I would hope that the legacy is the relationships, a legacy of great relationships. I wouldn't say my time there was based on statistics and wins losses because I think it was better than average. I think I ended up with more wins than losses. Had some great wins. Our rival with the U of A, those are some great memories. Um, but I guess knowing that uh, you have an impact on some people's lives and come back to you and tell you how much I meant to them and how much I helped them grow when they were immature, but they grew. They saw things, they tasted things, foods, places that they would have never gone out of their comfort zone to see. That to me is more of the legacy, and that I would be proud to know that I helped somebody, grow to the next level or be curious or be interested in something besides volleyball. That's more important to me.
Now, in addition to your great careers in volleyball and real estate, you are a parent of 3 children.
Yes.
What's the journey been like for you as a parent, raising your kids and seeing them grow up?
Any parent, your parents, I'm sure you're just so proud of them becoming these adult humans that are super productive. They're all highly effective in their jobs. You know, they all have their professional um, jobs that they're doing very well in. So I'm proud of them and the ability to be around in their most important times of their growth. Uh, I don't know. I think probably my most important job in my life to this point is to be a parent. And my husband and I think we did a pretty good job to, produce three thriving, healthy children who, we constantly get compliments of that. Your daughters, your son, they're so well spoken, they're so kind, they're so nice, they work so hard. And it's like, okay, well, that's good. That's all you want, right? You want them to be happy and work hard and enjoy their life. They travel the world, they're curious. Um, really proud of them. And I think my husband and I did a good job, with that. So I am proud of that. Is that an answer to your question?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Sometimes I start going and it's like, what was the question?
Last question here. What is the biggest piece of advice that you have for aspiring volleyball players?
Um, uh, the process, the daily grind that you're in, take advantage of your process. Learn things that aren't just about volleyball. Learn about discipline. Learn about hard work. Learn about working with somebody next to you, communicating with somebody next to you. It's like be in the human part of what you're going through. Pay attention to what you're going through. It happens so fast, and if you are, you're complaining, you're worried about things. It's like just stay in your moment and work hard in that moment and communicate with those around you in those moments. You can't help but grow and thrive, and it helps you to come out of yourself so that you can grow and change. So I don't know, just work hard and stay in the moment, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, that's some great advice. I'm not going to argue with that at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Uh, gosh. Well, Patty, thank you so much for letting me have this amazing opportunity to talk with you today. Just once again, such an honor.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm very humbled that you would even ask me to, have this conversation because I love the sport. And thank you. Thank you for what you're doing to shine the light on this amazing sport. It's gymnastics with a ball. So it's a very exciting sport to watch. Like I said, it's having its moment. Um, and the stands are just being packed left and right, and I love it. I love where it's gone, but it's people like you that are bringing attention and keeping things relevant and having these conversations that kind of humanize the flip side of what's going on in the gym every day. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.